Tennessee. Our team is on the ground. A week after that massive ship became stuck in the Suez Canal, how crews finally got it free. And the touchdown, seen by millions and inspiring America.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening, everyone. Today, a Minnesota jury and millions of TV viewers relive the incredibly disturbing last minutes of George Floyd's life. The uninterrupted video of him while under the knee of a Minneapolis police officer 10 months ago, shown today at the start of the televised murder trial of the now former officer Derek Chauvin. Prosecutors telling the jury it was not the 8 minutes and 46 seconds we were led to believe, but rather 9 minutes and 29 seconds that Floyd was pinned to the ground. They say Floyd was murdered. The defense suggesting drugs led to his death. We'll have full coverage of day one of the trial in a moment. But we're also covering this candid moment today from the head of the CDC that gave us pause. I want you to hear it.
I'm going to reflect on the recurring feeling I have of impending doom. We have so much to look forward to, so much promise and potential of where we are, and so much reason for hope. But right now, I'm scared.
Impending doom, scared about where we are with COVID right now, says Dr. Rochelle Walensky. And we'll tell you the numbers that should rattle all of us. But let's begin in Minneapolis in the trial the world is watching. Gabe Gutierrez is there.
They knelt in prayer and defiance. George Floyd's family outside the courthouse in Minneapolis ahead of opening statements.
Today starts a landmark trial that will be a referendum on how far America has come in its quest for equality and justice for all.
But inside the courtroom, both the prosecution and the defense insisted this trial was not about policing in America, rather that it was about one police officer, Derek Chauvin. He's pleaded not guilty to charges of second-degree murder and manslaughter, plus a recently added charge of third-degree murder. Prosecutors now say he knelt on Floyd's neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds, longer than the 8 minutes and 46 seconds that had previously become a global rallying cry.
This case is not about split-second decision-making. In 9 minutes and 29 seconds, there are 479 seconds, not a split second among them.
In his opening statement, the prosecutor played the full bystander cell phone video that first catapulted this case into the national consciousness. Floyd's nephew walked out of the court's overflow room.
Had you seen that video before?
I've seen bits and pieces. I still to this day haven't watched it in full. As they showed Chauvin kneeling on his neck and like kind of repositioning, and just hearing my uncle ask for help and say he couldn't breathe, I couldn't watch it.
But Chauvin's defense attorney pointed to other videos, the body cameras worn by the officers, which he says will show the full interaction between Floyd and the police.
The evidence will show that Mr. Floyd died of a cardiac arrhythmia that occurred as a result of hypertension, his coronary disease, the ingestion of methamphetamine and fentanyl, and the adrenaline flowing through his body.
You swear or affirm on penalty of perjury?
The first witness, a 911 dispatcher who testified she watched the encounter unfold from this nearby security camera shown publicly for the first time. For several minutes, she noticed the officers had not moved, and she first thought the screen might be frozen.
Something wasn't right. I don't know how to explain it. It was a gut instinct to tell me that now we can be concerned.
Gabe, were any more witnesses called late today?
Yes, Lester. Prosecutors called 2 more witnesses late today, bystanders at the scene as they try to paint a clearer picture of the last few moments of George Floyd's life. This trial is expected to last 2 to 4 weeks, Lester.
All right, Gabe Gutierrez this evening. Thank you. Let's turn now to that urgent new warning about COVID and the CDC director's fears of impending doom. This comes even as 95 million have received at least one vaccine dose. And President Biden says 90% of adults will be eligible for the vaccine in 3 weeks. Miguel Almaguer tonight, though, on the growing concerns.
Not since the deadly winter surge have so many states, 31, recorded a troubling rise in new COVID cases. Infections are up 10% nationwide. Today, the CDC director trying to keep her composure.
I'm going to pause here. I'm going to lose the script, and I'm going to reflect on the recurring feeling I have of impending doom. We have so much to look forward to, so much promise and potential of where we are, and so much reason for hope. But right now I'm scared. I know what it's like as a physician to stand in that patient room, gowned, gloved, masked, shielded, and to be the last person to touch someone else's loved one because their loved one couldn't be there.
With signs of trouble brewing in the Northeast and Midwest, doctors in parts of Washington state already fear they're entering a fourth surge.
But the numbers haven't slowed Americans down. More than 1 million have flown every day for the last 18 straight days, despite CDC guidance to avoid air travel.
As more states reopen, yet another state, Arkansas, announces their mask mandate is coming to an end. The president asking some governors to pause reopenings and reinstate mask policies.
This is not politics. Reinstate the mandate.
It comes after Dr. Deborah Birx says hundreds of thousands of lives could have likely been saved had the Trump administration acted more aggressively.
There were about 100,000 deaths that came from that original surge. All of the rest of them, in my mind, could have been mitigated or decreased substantially.
As Texas began vaccinating anyone 16 and over today, the CDC confirms under real-world conditions, both Pfizer and Moderna's vaccines are 90% effective, but vaccines alone may not prevent a fourth surge.
I'm speaking today not only as your CDC director, but as a wife, as a mother, as a daughter, to ask you to just please hold on a little while longer.
Tonight, a call for the nation to act, but will it be heard? Miguel Almaguer, NBC News.
The origins of the coronavirus are still an open question, according to a joint report by the WHO and China obtained by NBC News. The report already being met with skepticism because China never allowed full access to investigators. With more, here's Keir Simmons.
Tonight, NBC News has obtained a leaked copy of a highly anticipated 123-page report addressing the question, where did COVID come from? The World Health Organization's joint study with China concluding the exact route of exposure to people is unknown. It continues, circumstantial evidence supports a range of potential spillover pathways, most likely bats to humans, perhaps involving another animal. And it says a laboratory origin of the pandemic was considered extremely unlikely. But critics say the WHO team only made brief visits to the Wuhan Institute of Virology and never received all the information they requested from Chinese officials. Just last week, a former CDC director saying,
I still think the most likely etiology of this pathogen in Wuhan was from a laboratory, escaped.
Adding to the mystery tonight, NBC News confirming through patents that the Wuhan Institute of Virology have been taking live bats from the wild since at least 2009, and in some cases, keeping them for years. In a 2018 patent, the WIV demonstrated it had designed cages for breeding bats. Today, the WHO saying nothing should be ruled out.
All hypotheses are on the table and warrant complete and further studies.
But tonight, other scientists have called for an independent investigation, noting that every conclusion in this report had to be signed off by China. Lester.
All right, Keir Simmons, thank you. In just 60 seconds, the new accusation against Governor Andrew Cuomo and the growing backlash against Georgia's restrictive new voting law. New York's embattled Governor Andrew Cuomo is facing yet another woman's accusation of inappropriate behavior. Tonight, here's Ann Thompson.
It's the scandal New York Governor Andrew Cuomo can't escape. Today, 55-year-old Sherry Ville says Cuomo kissed her twice without her consent as he visited her flood-damaged home in 2017.
I felt like I was being manhandled.
A claim she backs up with pictures.
I felt he was acting in a highly flirtatious and inappropriate manner, especially in front of my family and neighbors.
Ville is at least the ninth known woman to accuse the 63-year-old Democrat of inappropriate behavior or sexual harassment, and the third to say the governor gave or attempted to give an unwanted kiss. Meanwhile, a lawyer for the Cuomo administration confirms the Attorney General's investigators are asking for documents and issuing subpoenas for the governor's staff, including his top aide, Melissa DeRosa. The administration attorney says no one should be surprised. It happens in every investigation, and it's wildly premature to speculate what it means. Cuomo, who's denied any inappropriate behavior, has recently deflected questions, citing the AG's investigation. Tonight, Cuomo's attorney says the governor often comforts New Yorkers with hugs and kisses, but Ville says she's taking her allegation to the attorney general. Lester?
Ann Thompson in New York tonight. Thank you. Ghislaine Maxwell, the longtime confidant of Jeffrey Epstein, is facing new charges for the first time, accused of sex trafficking of a minor. It's a new indictment accusing her of helping recruit and paying a 14-year-old girl to engage in sexual acts with Epstein between 2001 and 2004. Maxwell pleaded not guilty to previous charges tied to Epstein. In Tennessee, even more rain is forecast for the Nashville area as it tries to recover from a weekend of record and deadly flooding. Morgan Chesky is there.
Tonight, a waterlogged Tennessee in recovery mode after a historic drenching turned deadly.
It felt like a bomb went off and then it rained.
Art Gonzalez spent today tossing what he tried to save before floodwaters pushed him, his family, and their
It looks like a
chickens
mess up here, but we did what we
upstairs.
had to do to protect them.
The flood erupting from 7 inches of rain in barely 48 hours that left 7 people dead.
As people were trying to leave their home, get away from the water, and that's where they ended up getting caught with vehicle rescues.
In some cases, the fast-moving waters left even rescuers in need of help. Here outside Nashville, this fire truck was swept right off the road by rising waters. Fortunately, everyone on board made it to safety just in time. For Tracy Reed, the muddy cleanup painful, but not without perspective. Do you feel helpless?
No, not really.
Why?
Well, because we can clean up and move on. Nobody's hurt.
Hope in a storm season that's just begun. Morgan Chesky, NBC News, Nashville.
We want to turn now to the worsening situation at the border. The record number of unaccompanied migrant children soaring even higher. Here's Antonia Hilton.
Tonight, despite opening more housing facilities, the Biden administration is still struggling with a surge of migrant children at the border. According to new data obtained by NBC News, a record 5,400 unaccompanied children are now being held in Border Patrol's jail-like facilities. Nearly 4,000 children are being detained longer than the 72 hours allowed by law. Here in the Rio Grande Valley, Border Patrol facilities are at 800% capacity. Republicans who just toured the border, blasting President Biden for changing border policy, allowing unaccompanied children in.
This crisis that is unfolding is the direct result of political decisions made by Joe Biden and his administration. What Joe Biden has done now is he has essentially invited illegal immigration.
Today in Brownsville, Texas, we met 2 Honduran families who came with their children and are now out of custody, released into the U.S. as they await asylum hearings, receiving water and supplies from volunteers. I asked this mom, are there safety problems in your country? Problems with safety, education, hurricanes that left us in poverty, she said. This father said a lack of jobs and poverty is the reason they came.
But not everyone gets the chance to try and start life over in the U.S. Just yesterday, we met a man from El Salvador who was likely to be deported. He told us he'll be killed if he's sent back. Lester?
Antonia, thank you. There is growing fallout from Georgia's new law restricting voting rights. Blaine Alexander on calls to boycott major companies there.
In the battle over the ballot, Georgia's economy is increasingly caught in the middle, with calls for boycotts growing louder after the Republican-led state legislature passed a sweeping new elections law that would, among other things, limit the use of ballot drop boxes and require ID to apply for mail-in ballots instead of signature verification. Changes that Republicans say help secure the process.
So people are used to using an ID to vote in Georgia. And if you don't have ID, we'll give you one for free.
No justice! But critics call it voter suppression, saying that black voters are more likely to be impacted by the changes. Now, critics are putting pressure on big businesses. The National Black Justice Coalition is urging the famed Masters Tournament to relocate from its Augusta national home, writing in part, professional golf should not reward Georgia's attacks on democracy. And across the internet, growing calls to boycott Delta Airlines, Coca-Cola, and Home Depot, all Georgia-based giants.
The message that I want them to take away from this is that voter suppression is bad for business. It's bad for your bottom line.
And the law is just barely 4 days old, but already there are at least 2 legal challenges trying to strike it down. Lester?
All right, thank you. And next, the surge in vacation rentals, what you need to know. That massive container ship stuck for 6 days in the Suez Canal was finally freed today, and with it, hundreds of other ships waiting to pass through the canal with supplies for the world. Molly Hunter on The Breakthrough.
The Ever Given is now on her way, capturing the world's attention for getting stuck in the Suez Canal. After a final night of pushing and pulling by a small army of tugboats, hours later, as the high tide moved in, diggers hard at work around the bow, then it happened. NBC's Raf Sanchez was there.
This is the moment the world's been waiting for. With horns blaring in celebration, the Ever Given finally sailing away. People here in Suez wishing it Godspeed.
The Japanese-owned ship is 4 football fields long. The Suez Canal only 2 football fields wide.
There is literally no margin for error.
Does this happen? How rare is this?
This is an extremely rare event. And other than times of war, I can't remember a moment where the canal has been closed like this for days at a time. It has disrupted the entire global trading system.
On board, all the essentials. Suez officials announcing 113 ships, more than the daily normal, will sail through in the next 12 hours. But tonight, more than 300 ships still waiting their turn. Molly Hunter, NBC News, London.
Despite new warnings about new COVID cases, Americans tired of being grounded by the virus are snapping up vacation rentals. Kristen Dahlgren tells you what you need to know.
When the Kelly family wanted to get away for a recent ski vacation,
you guys excited?
Yeah. Finding a rental house wasn't easy or inexpensive.
It's like you're in the Twilight Zone. I was very surprised on the lack of inventory that was out there.
The nation's top rental sites, Airbnb and Vrbo, both reporting a huge surge in demand.
I think we've seen the worst year for travel ever in 2020. I think 2021 and 2022 will be insane.
In some of the most popular destinations, Vrbo says fewer than half its homes are available for July. The company reporting it's off to its strongest start in 25 years, while rival Airbnb shares are up more than 24% this year, as many travelers choose homes over hotels.
It's just you and your family, and you don't need to leave if you don't want to.
Experts say the rental home inventory does change, especially as quarantine requirements and vaccination levels shift, and always confirm cancellation policies, just in case plans or the pandemic changes. Kristen Dahlgren, NBC News.
Up next for us here tonight, the touchdown that's inspiring America. Finally, a conference showdown between 2 rival high school football teams in North Carolina might ordinarily have been the highlight of the night, but it was the play right before kickoff that both teams are smiling about. When senior Sam Jordan raced down the field Friday night and scored his first touchdown, the high fives came not only from his team, but his opponents as well.
It was the biggest day of my life.
Sam has a love for the game.
I've started being a football fan since I was little.
He also has Down syndrome.
The first thing actually I said when we walked out of the pediatrician's office was, well, he'll never play football. So that was really difficult for me.
You do grieve the dreams that you had before the diagnosis, but then you refocus and you know that there's still hope, and this was just a beautiful sign of that.
Sam has been the manager of the Lake Norman High School football team since he was a freshman.
I like helping them out and just being there for them. I spent 4 years with these cats, and they're really awesome.
But on senior night, he suited up, cleats and all.
If they're going to do it, they got to do it completely. Got to do it all out.
The video has been viewed over 2 million times. Sam hoping this will inspire others.
You're worth it. You're not a disappointment. Just be who you are.
A victory for Sam and a win for everyone. And that's Nightly News for this Monday. Thank you for watching, everyone. I'm Lester Holt. Please take care of yourself and each other. Good night. Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.